Okay, guys, welcome back to another edition of Lawyered Up. I am your host, Jared Moore. I am not a lawyer, but we are going to try to figure out what's going on in court. Today, we're going to be talking about a settlement agreement between the city of Tulsa and the Mvskoke Creek Nation concerning tribal jurisdiction. I wanted to mention a couple of things before we start going into that. The first one being that it's important to remember that there are two lawsuits that the Mvskoke Creek Nation has with the Tulsa generally. One of them was this one, between the Creek Nation and the city of Tulsa. And there's another lawsuit that's between the Creek Nation and the county of Tulsa, and specifically Steve Kunstweiler, who is the DA, and Vic Regalato, who is the sheriff. Okay. Now I mention that because, and I'm not going to go into a lot of the statements by Governor Stitt and everything. If you guys want to read that stuff, you can go check it out. I don't think it's really... Governor Stitt, though he applied to be an intervenor in this case, the judge had not granted him that as of the time of this settlement. Also, Steve Kunstweiler this is something that a lot of the local media didn't point out that I think that they should have, is that they were running statements from Steve Kunstweiler about this settlement and not mentioning that he is also the subject of a separate lawsuit. So that's something to keep in mind. I do want to show you guys, though, that we did cover that. So you can see here, this is the other lawsuit where it's MCN is suing the county, Tulsa County, right? And you can see down here that Steve Kunstweiler and Regalato are both mentioned in there, and you can check that out on our website. That link isn't in the description, but the links to everything else we're going to be talking about are in the description of this video. And this is our coverage if you guys want to go read our coverage on it. But so let's start off with and also we had covered this when it passed through the National Council and the committees, the tribal resolution authorizing this. So we've been covering it all the way along. Let me check here because there's some stuff. I haven't seen any more come up with Mike Berryhill accusations. If you are a citizen and you need legal help, you might be able to contact the AG's office and they might be able to refer you. The nation does have, I believe, some legal services that they can do for citizens, but I think it's under the AG's office, so you might check that out. Okay, so with both of those things addressed, let's jump right in here. So let me zoom this in a little bit so you guys can see it. This is the statement that was issued by the city of Tulsa. It's on their website. I do like it. I like what Mayor Nichols is doing here, and I like that he addressed some of the claims that are not true about the settlement that were made by various political entities like Governor Stitt, etc. If you want to go and read the actual settlement agreement, though, which is what we're going to check out right now, there's a link at the bottom of the statement down here that you can click, which will take you to another page, which will take you to this, which is their settlement agreement. Now, I checked Pacer today. I would expect there to be a court order to come out of this, and as we read this, it'll mention that. There hasn't been a court order yet in this case, and there hasn't been any changes in the other case about the county of Tulsa. So we're still in a stay in the MCN versus city of Tulsa, and then the MCN versus county of Tulsa is still ongoing. Okay, that might get confusing, but just stick with me. So let's take a look at the settlement here. There's some preliminary stuff here, definitions, terms and conditions. Acknowledgement of criminal jurisdiction in recent and pending cases. So this is basically talking about McGirt and things that if you have watched our program, you know you have followed a lot of these judgments, so I'm not going to go into that too much. But what I do want to point out here is this E, cases are pending, which, if appealed to the United States Supreme Court, may resolve or reconcile the conflicting opinions of federal and state courts. See United States versus Ballard, United States versus Iskey. These are both cases where the DOJ is suing Oklahoma DAs who are not recognizing the McGirt decision. Okay, So basically they're saying if we get a decision out of these cases that says these DAs are wrong, then maybe that'll solve this problem, which is good. And also here it mentions the Mvskoke Creek Nation versus Tulsa County here. They defer to the nation's jurisdiction. And let's go down here. Identification of suspects as Indian defendants. The city shall make a good faith effort to determine the Indian status of all suspects or defendants before seeking to exercise criminal jurisdiction over such persons, which they should be doing already anyway. That's just, proper procedure. This is an interesting part. Dismissal of pending prosecutions against Indian defendants. As of the effective date of this agreement, the city will dismiss with prejudice all pending prosecutions in the city's court system, municipal court, against all known Indian defendants for conduct occurring on the nation's reservation. So what they're saying there is, with prejudice is a legal term that means that it can't be brought again in that court. So that part is saying we're going to drop all of our pending cases, okay? Agreement to not initiate future prosecutions. As of the effective date of this agreement, the city will not initiate prosecutions in municipal courts or the courts of the state of Oklahoma against known Indian defendants for conduct occurring on the nation's reservation. Seems simple. Now, as far as those pending charges, they're going to refer everything. So 12 is referral of tickets and charges to the nation. As of the effective date of this agreement, the city will work in good faith with the nation to transfer tickets and charges dismissed under Section 10 of this agreement to the nation. The city shall refer all future charges and tickets against known Indian defendants for conduct occurring within the nation's reservation. So what they're saying there, guys, is we're dropping all our cases, and those cases aren't going away. They're getting referred to the Creek Nation, and the Creek Nation is going to handle it. So that's basically what this is going on here. Prosecution by the nation. The nation will review in good faith all tickets and charges referred by the city and prosecute such cases consistent with the nation's law enforcement priorities and prosecutorial discretion. The nation and city agree to work together in good faith to facilitate the efficient and orderly implementation of this provision, including through the establishment of joint law enforcement working group provided for in Section 15 of this agreement. So later they're going to talk about the working group. I would also mention to you guys, if you follow our legislative coverage, you will have seen that over the years, particularly the past few years, the nation has adopted a lot of the same traffic code that City of Tulsa has and the state of Oklahoma has to make everything consistent. So the laws aren't actually different in that respect for all of that stuff. So it's not going to be like they're going to not be able to carry over charges. So let me check are tribal defenders going to be provided to indigent defendants in criminal and civil cases? I believe that is the case. I haven't asked the AG's office about it, but there is already a tribal defenders public defender network that they utilize for cases where they can assign a public defender to a defendant. So that already exists. Will it need to get bigger? Don't know, but we are reaching out to those guys. And also, if you got anybody that's watching this or listening to this that's a citizen, feel free to ask the AG's office too, because that would be, the AG would know. Let's see, recognition, and let's go on down here. Now, this is another interesting thing I wanted to mention. B, the nation utilizes a case management software that you guys know about because we go to it all the time and look at stuff, and tracking database, which records the disposition of all cases processed by nation prosecutions or prosecutors within the nation's Office of the Attorney General, including whether charges are filed, deferred, or declined, and the reason for that disposition. As a referring jurisdiction, the city will have access of the nation's prosecutorial decisions through this system. The nation agrees to ensure that the city retains access to these records of decision through this database, and that the Office of the Attorney General will discuss in good faith any questions that the city might have regarding the nation's prosecutorial decisions in individual cases or classes of cases. So this little section here is pointing out a very important thing, and I'm mentioning it so that political entities or Governor Stitt or somebody else doesn't try to smear this, because you need to connect those computer systems so that, if you get pulled over by Tulsa police and they're going to refer that prosecution somewhere else, of course, But if you get pulled over by them, they know if the person has a warrant and so on and so forth. They know who's a felon and been convicted in tribal court. And generally, for law enforcement and legal everything that you want to do in a court, it's good to have those computer systems connected. The more computer systems that are connected in jurisdictions, the better, in my opinion. Let's go on down here. Settlement. This is the part I wanted to talk about next, is the settlement and dismissal of litigation. The parties to this agreement agree to jointly move the court to do the following with respect to the litigation. A, grant the United States motion to withdraw its motion to intervene. So, as I said earlier, several parties had made a motion to intervene that had not been granted. The United States had made a motion to intervene, and then they had made another motion to withdraw that motion. And so they're saying, yes, you can let them withdraw. Deny all other pending or future motions to intervene. So what they're saying there is Governor Stitt, deny his motion to intervene. The Freedman Band, Demario Solomon Simmons made a motion to intervene. You got to deny that one, right? Because we're settling the case. There's going to be a case soon. C, dismiss the litigation without prejudice to the nation's ability to bring suit to enforce its jurisdiction to the fullest extent authorized under federal law, should the agreement be modified or terminated pursuant to Section 18 of this agreement. So what they're saying there is dismiss the litigation. Let's see. T.Y. Prohl's asking, even if they are tribal citizens like Cherokees, freedmen who won't go to tribal court. This agreement is only for the Mvskoke Creek Nation, but it does apply to all tribal citizens that are on the Mvskoke Creek Nation reservation. Now, if you're on the Cherokee reservation, they, to my knowledge, they don't have an agreement with City of Tulsa. I could be wrong about that, but that would be a separate thing. This agreement is only going to apply to the Mvskoke Creek Nation reservation, but it is going to apply to citizens of all federally recognized Indian tribes. Okay, so that's an important point. Cooperative law enforcement principles and plan. I'm going to skip over this part just because they're talking about how they're going to coordinate there. The effective date. Good faith negotiation and mediation. It is the intent of the parties that any dispute arising in the course of performance under this agreement will be resolved informally and promptly through good faith negotiations. Should any dispute arise that cannot be resolved by negotiation, either party may request mediation by giving a written mediation demand to the other party. Mediation is a condition precedent to enforcing, modifying, or terminating this agreement pursuant to Section 18. So basically, for the agreement, if they have a dispute about anything, they're going to go into mediation first. I'm going to skip down to Section 18. Let's see here. T.Y. Prohl, I wasn't talking about freedmen. I'm saying it like you have to be a member of a federally recognized Native American tribe to come to court in the Creek Nation. So that's where we are on that. Let's go on down. Okay, 18. Enforcing, modifying, or terminating this agreement. This agreement may be enforced, modified, or terminated as follows. If a relevant federal decision finds or determines that the state of Oklahoma and/or its political subdivisions have criminal jurisdiction over Indian defendants within the nation's reservation boundaries, the city's decisions regarding whether to initiate future prosecutions in state or municipal court and whether to refer tickets and charges to the nation will be made as a matter of municipal policy and comity at the city's sole discretion rather than the terms of this agreement. In such case, either party may terminate this agreement or propose modifications to the agreement to reflect the finding or determination of the relevant federal decision. So basically what this first section is saying is, if there's a federal decision that reverses anything or changes the status quo on this, we're going to refer to that, that's what you would do in the court anyway. So boilerplate to a certain extent. If either the Mvskoke Creek Nation principal chief or the mayor of the city of Tulsa does not approve the report and plan described in Section 15 in writing within 1 year of the effective date of this agreement, either party may terminate this agreement. So let's go back up here really quick because I don't think I mentioned that. Yes. This section 15, cooperating law enforcement principles and plan, one of the things it talks about is the working group. So they're going to have a working group. Where is that? Establish a joint working group to assess the parties' shared governance needs and goals and to evaluate and recommend additional practices, policies, and cooperative agreements to achieve their joint public safety and law enforcement priorities. Within 8 months from the effective date of this agreement, the working group will present a comprehensive report on the status and disposition of cases referred by the city to the nation and an actionable plan for achieving shared public safety goals in the city of Tulsa on the nation's reservation. The plan, which will be made available to the public, shall address matters such as booking procedures and transfer of custody, detention facilities and procedures, special services such as addiction and mental health, treatment and diversion, laboratory testing costs, evidence and property storage, video testimony, warrants and extradition procedures, law enforcement communication, training, policies and procedures, expedient and reliable identification of Indian defendants, and communication and coordination regarding major crimes. The report and plan will be presented to the Mvskoke Creek Nation Principal Chief and the Mayor of the City of Tulsa for consideration and approval in writing. So what they're saying there is, you got 8 months for the working group to make the plan. They turn the plan over to Chief Hill and they turn the plan over to Mayor Nichols. And if those guys don't approve it within a year of within the remaining 4 months, right? Then the agreement can be terminated, right? So, that's the timeline we're looking at. 8 months from when this gets approved. They'll have a plan. The plan will be yayed or nayed within the next 4 months, and then the agreement for the jurisdictional dispute will be settled. I wanted to look really quick and show you guys who's supposed to be on here. Where is it? I don't know if that's actually on here. Let me look. We went over that. C. Should either party fail to meet its obligations under this agreement, either party may request by motion that the court enforce, modify, or terminate this agreement, provided that such motion must represent to the court that the parties were unable to resolve the dispute after engaging in good faith negotiations and mediation regarding disputed issues. Upon receipt of such motion and any responses and replies to such motion, under the governing federal rules of civil procedure and local rules of the court may enter an order enforcing, modifying, or terminating this agreement. And this is dated 25th day of June. Let me scroll up here and see. I thought that the working group members were defined in here, but I don't see it now that I'm looking for it. Let me scroll up a little bit, guys. It says it's best served by a cooperative intergovernmental approach to exercising public safety and law enforcement responsibilities within the nation's reservation. In furtherance of this renewed focus on cooperative governance, the nation and city agree that within 1 month of the effective date of this agreement, they will establish a joint working group to assess the parties' shared governance needs and goals, so on and so forth. So it's not defined in here. They're gonna. That's something that they will negotiate further, I guess. Let me take a look here. What's going on? State Municipal Court. Yeah, they're tribal citizens. I don't know about that type. T.Y. Pearl is saying freedmen will still be tried in state and municipal court even if they are tribal citizens. If they are, I don't know if that's the way that's going to shake out. If the Creek Nation Supreme Court makes a determination that the freedmen are under the 1866 treaty citizens of the nation, or whatever that decision would say, then they would be citizens of tribal nations. I don't think it's based on they're going to base it on a CDIB card. I think they're going to base it on the citizenship. But I don't know. It's an interesting question, and I'll reach out to the Attorney General's office to see if we can get some clarification on that. When we get to that stage, if the Supreme Court rules the other way, then it's kind of a moot point. Does this settlement impact civil matters like in Strobel? This will probably not impact, the Strobel case is about a Mvskoke Creek citizen working for the Mvskoke Creek government and living on the Mvskoke Creek reservation, not having to pay income tax to the state, right? And that's what that case is going to decide. Is that right or wrong? And it's not going to be based on any federal law or any Mvskoke Creek Nation law. That's state code that says that if you live on the nation and you work for the nation and you're a citizen of the nation, you don't have to pay state taxes. So that's the state Supreme Court making a decision about state code, tax code. So this decision or this settlement shouldn't affect that in any way. It's not going to change the boundaries of the reservation or anything like that. Now, other civil matters, I don't know if it would impact any civil matters, honestly. I think this is focused on is municipal violations, municipal parking code, vehicle code, that type of stuff, like going through red lights, speeding, blowing through a stop sign, those types of things are DUI. Those types of things are going to get. There's still, after this plan and everything gets instituted, what will probably change from now is you will probably see Tulsa police able to arrest and hold tribal citizens, and then they're going to probably transfer them to tribal court and tribal detention. It will depend on the specifics will depend on what that working plan says. Where are you going to hold these guys? Who's going to be responsible for the evidence? And so on and so forth, right? Those are the things you would see in a cross-deputization agreement or any type of shared jurisdiction type agreement. Explain how it impacts civil infractions and criminal infractions, please. Well, basically, civil infractions and criminal infractions will probably all be transferred to the tribal court if you're a tribal citizen. This is the settlement agreement, just to hone down on it. This is the settlement agreement where they're saying we are both agreeing to have a working group. We're going to stop what we're doing right now. We're going to have a working group. We're going to transfer the stuff that we have right now to tribal court. The working group is going to come up with a plan that clearly delineates all the questions that you're asking right now, like how it's going to impact civil infractions and all that stuff. And then the mayor and the chief are going to look at that and say yay or nay. We want to do this or we don't want to do that. And then they might have to do more. So that is where we are at. The stuff like licensing. Well, the license, are you talking about your driver's license? Because that's going to be through the state, right? And then your tag is going to be licensed through, if you're a tribal citizen, you could do either one. You could do the state or you could do the tribal tag, right? So I don't think that it will affect your licensing in any significant way. Business occupancy. Now, that would be something that you would need to see. I don't know if that's delineated in, they're going to do the plan on that, how that's going to be addressed in the plan. Because I don't think that there is a difference between Tulsa's business code and the tribal business code. One of the things courts and governments have to do, and the nation has had this for a while, is you have to adopt uniform civil code, uniform municipal code and stuff, to have even have a business operating. And if it's one entity or another, whether it's the Creek Nation or the city of Tulsa, if the city of Tulsa can't enforce their ordinances, the ordinances that they have are going to probably match up with the Creek Nation ordinances. But in those instances, because the Creek Nation does not have I don't think they have a mechanism for establishing corporations and stuff like the state. Like your business is the ones that are actually going to get charged with something in occupancy, not the individual. But as far as food service, evictions, and contracts, that stuff is probably still going to be handled through state courts, I would assume, because your business has your LLC and your all of that stuff through the state, if that makes any sense. The zoning, I don't know how zoning was going to apply to that. I don't think it would apply to it at all. But what type of zoning infraction are you talking about? That somebody builds something. What you would be postulating is that a tribal citizen has a business in an area that they're not supposed to have a business, because in that situation, the business would be the one that's going to get charged with something. Is like not the individual themselves, that their business is going to have to do something. Now, or if you go the other way, you could say you have a tribal citizen, maybe he's living in an area that he's not supposed to be living in through the zoning. Then you would be charging them with something, I don't know what it would be, trespassing or whatever, and that would probably go to tribal court. So there are a lot of kinks to get worked out, and they might not even address those specific areas and have the city of Tulsa continue to handle those types of municipal violations. The problems that this working group is trying, or this plan and this settlement are trying to address, are going to be the problems of who pulls somebody over, and do they get arrested, or do they go to which jail, and what court handles those charges. If the nation wants to assert their jurisdiction in things like zoning and other things, they're going to have to establish that the nation owns a property and that it has something, Board of Adjustment Appeals. That stuff is going to probably be through the city. But like I said, I'm not a lawyer, I don't know, and since we haven't seen the actual plan yet, we don't know. Nobody really knows. They're just agreeing to sit at the same table at this point, which is good. So, do you guys have any other questions about this? I think we've gone over it, and you guys can read it at leisure. If you look here, it has just been signed by the city, or I don't know if that's Kutzweiler's signature there. I think this is just the city attorney. I'm not sure who that is. The mayor has signed it, and the city clerk has signed it. And then there is also Chief Hill's signature down here. So we're going to keep track of this process, and the city of Tulsa and the Creek Nation are both being pretty transparent with this particular story. They're posting to their websites, so you guys should be able to follow along too. In 8 months from now, we'll see what this plan looks like, or hopefully they have a plan by then. We are, just to give you guys some updates, tomorrow morning, it's festival weekend. If you guys didn't know, you should go out to the festival and check it out. It was shut down a little bit earlier because of the rain we had blow through, but I think it's back up and running now. I'm not for sure. You can check our Facebook for updates on that. Tomorrow I am going to be, at the festival parade, recording the festival parade video for our channel. So if you guys want to come check it out or meet me or whatever, that's where I'll be. We have a bunch of events going on tomorrow, and the come out and check out the entertainment and everything. Next week, we are going to be getting together the festival edition for the paper. The week after that, I've got a couple of live wires coming up. One of them is going to be about grants to teachers that the nation has organized. And then the other one is going to be concerning, I'm going to talk to some people from PBS about a program they put out about water sovereignty and water impacts for tribal nations and things. It should be an interesting program. So if most of my equipment has moved into the new studio. We had a setback as far as getting internet into our new studio, but we should have internet up and running there after July 10th. And then you guys will be able to see the new studio. It's going to look kind of like the old set, but maybe I could put a video together for a tour of our Tulsa offices if you guys want to check it out. Just let me know. Give me a message on this or something saying, yeah, we want to see it, or you don't care. It doesn't matter to me. with that being said, I appreciate you guys tuning in and walking through all this stuff. And Mado Hadum Chihichat, Lees.